Yo, alright, so it's Saturday, February 7th, 7:15 p.m. I'm gonna try and see if I can post this video today, because I took a break yesterday from recording like a daily thing. But I wanted to get on here and talk about, real quick, my first ever YouTube comment, right? So, I got I got two comments from my last video, which I actually didn't expect whatsoever. Right? Because I thought usually when a small channel posts something, they're not supposed to get many views in a day, especially since like that's my second ever video, right? And the first comment that I ever got was this one, right? Twin, to be honest, I don't know what you was talking about, but I low-key fuck with this video hard, keep at it, G, enjoy life and shit, right? And I was like, that's beautiful, because that's feedback, and I completely understand what this person's talking about, right? They said, I don't know what you were talking about. And to be honest, when I go into these videos, I start with like one general idea of what I'm going to talk about, and then I just go off. And then I think yesterday, I watched back in the editing process the video one time, and then I think a second time after it was posted, or maybe again in the editing process, something like that. But I definitely watched it twice before I saw this comment, and then after I saw that comment, I watched it again. And it's interesting to see how much just like reading this person's different perspective, and kind of judging what I was talking about through the lens of, does it actually follow a flow, and is there actually like an entire narrative here, or is it a bunch of disconnected ideas that I'm trying to bring all together? It turned out that, it kind of was mostly just a bunch of different ideas, and the title of the video kind of wasn't even really what the video was about, right? And so I kind of want to talk about that, right? Because it's like, I'm always looking for new perspectives, kind of for that exact reason, and I think this is a very human thing, right? To the point where I feel like most people want to hone their craft, want to do something very well at the end of the day, and most artists, most creatives want to um, do whatever they want, do whatever their creative art is to the greatest of their abilities. But it's very hard to see what you're doing wrong when you're you, right? When you're just you, when you don't have any outside opinions, when you don't have any outside perspectives. And sometimes people want to get to a greater place. I wanted to get to a greater place, but I wasn't really ever sure how to get there. And, the only real way for you to figure out, or for a creative to figure out, I guess I could say, is to kind of just go ahead and send it in one direction, see what happens, and then find what did work and what didn't work, right? That's kind of been my process throughout the past like 2 years of me doing these rants, right? Because first, in 2024, that's when I started like writing, right? That's when I started writing stuff down. That's when I first started like doing monthly documents, ranting with my fingers and stuff on documents constantly. And I had done it a few times beforehand, and that's how that habit started, was in like 2021. And in 2025, it changed because I was able to kind of see what I did in 2024, and I was like, well, okay, I feel like it would be cool, at least if I tried to do it on camera. And I remember watching back my January video from January of 2025 and being like, wow, not only did I really not want to be on the camera, but I have grown as a speaker like tenfold, like literally tenfold compared to that time. And that entire time, didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I just knew that um, doing it was kind of giving me this sense of growth, and that sense of growth encouraged me to start liking the video rant. It's the same thing with writing. The encouragement from learning something made me want to learn writing, right? And I feel that's also an important point to note. Like, that's why you always have to have enjoyment when you're learning something. And right now, what I'm learning is kind of like what it's like to speak in a public environment where you have to tell a narrative. You can't just go off random ideas, or, well, you can go off random ideas, but you have to make it connected enough to feel like an entire storyline. Or, yeah, we'll just stick with either storyline or narrative for the entire video. But, you know, it's also practice for me to learn video editing and all the art that has to go along with that, right? Because one of the things I wanted to talk about today was the fact that I tried to do two things today. First off, I researched some camera techniques, and then second off, I tried live streaming. I tried live streaming 2 times, and both of those live streams cut off within the first 2 minutes, right? The first one I actually did yesterday, right? Because I wanted to see, like, could I live stream on an alt account? So I clicked on it and went in and saw, wait, no, I actually can't, right? Because apparently you need to wait 24 hours after you request a stream key in order to stream. And obviously I wanted to do it now, so I just hopped on my main account and did like a whole unlisted thing, but my audio didn't work, right? So I was like, well, that's weird. I'll just sleep and figure it out, because at about that time it was like 11. So when I woke up this morning, I was like, all right, today's goal is going to be finding camera angles in my room, finding what looks good in my room, in terms of like a way to look at me or whatever when I'm going to do a video essay, when I eventually get to doing a video essay. But I had a few issues I ran into, right? So first off, every time I tried to move my laptop, the stream completely cut off. And also, on my Windows laptop that I got in like 2018 as a Christmas present, that's where I was streaming it, by the way. I tried to stream it on there, and it turns out, because I didn't update, right? It's still Windows 10, and apparently the drivers on Windows 10 couldn't connect to like an audio interface in the mic that I tried to get, right? And I got myself a pretty nice mic for Christmas from all the birthday money and the Christmas money I've been accumulating over the past like 10 years, right? And I decided to get it because like the only Christmas present I did get was from my grandma, which was money. And I decided, like, you know what? I want a mic, and I want the option available to me to have good audio. So I'm just gonna get the best microphone that I know is available, even though I always like go for the cheapest option, right? So that's like my first ever splurge or whatever. And that also failed. And I was able to kind of understand that, there are some things that are setting me apart, right, from the successful people, right? First of all, there are a lot of people who are much better at just kind of trying new things and being happy with trying new things, right? I had to build this up. I had to build up like my confidence in failure and make sure that I wasn't really afraid of failure by probably failing more than the average person ever would, right? So I've tried to write video scripts literally since 2021. I've tried to learn music. I've tried to learn writing, art. Drawing was a big one that I got frustrated with to no end. But, through all of that, I eventually learned, that I did learn better when I found something to enjoy, and then I found that, the less that I think about it, the more naturalized it is. But sometimes, that extra thought is necessary, and that's kind of what these video rants turned into me. And that's why I want to try my best to just kind of figure out what it'll be like to kind of, find out what I want to talk about. Find out what it's like to just focus up on a single subject and try not to get too far out of hand, too far out of the improvisational limit or whatever. And you know what? If I really wanted to do that, I'd end the video here, right? Because I feel like that's all the important things that I had to say about that first comment. But the second comment and the second thing I mentioned earlier were both things that gave me a lot more thought-provoking information, right? So I looked up some framing techniques, and I also looked up a video called, or I didn't look it up, it kind of just found me. I found a video called, damn it. Sometimes I have to take a breath and it comes to me. How Vanoss beat YouTube, right? And Vanoss Gaming is this 10 million subscriber YouTube channel for anybody who doesn't know, probably 20 million. I actually forgot the subscriber count, but I found them when I was like 5 years old, which was like a terrible age to find them, considering that they're not exactly a channel for kids and never have been. But it kind of talked about, like, what set him apart from the rest of his crew, what made him the most successful one. And it was, back then, the environment. The environment was, very little editing. There was also the meta of just being Let's Plays. There was less funny moments videos, and those funny moments videos really popped off on the platform back then. So the fact that he was making them put him ahead before everyone else, and like his improv skills also helped. But what mainly helped was his editing and his attention to detail, or at least that was the kind of thesis of the video, right? And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense, and that also tells me what my next goal should be, which is, finding out what would set me apart from the crowd, right? And it sounds very selfish, sounds very weird to say that I should set myself apart from the crowd when I already kind of see myself apart from the crowd. But, at the end of the day, everybody knows, who's ever watched a video essay about YouTube, everybody knows that the algorithm kind of sucks dick, right? And it always will. Probably will never change. And I also know that, I wouldn't exactly watch very many videos of me talking for 30 minutes for no apparent reason, right? And that's what I failed on yesterday, mainly, was talking for 30 minutes when I originally planned to only talk for 20. But I feel it was beneficial to me anyways, because I learned a lot more doing that, right? I fell into my classic process that I always do with my video rants, and that was taking a little bit of time, taking a little bit of a breather in between to kind of reinvigorate the ideas that I'm trying to go through. And speaking of reinvigoration, right, the second YouTube comment is what I want to talk about next, in between kind of like figuring out how to edit, figuring out generally how to run my YouTube channel, figuring out my audio and all that. I'll save all that for later if I have anything else to say for it. But for now, consider that topic kind of closed. If you have any YouTube comments, actually, if you have anything helpful for me, do not hesitate to criticize me, comment. I don't care. This is important for growth. Shit like this is important for growth. Even someone telling me I'm a fat fuck sometimes is like important for growth a little bit. But try to be as progressive as possible for my sanity, please. But this, one second. All right, I had to pause again because my dad came downstairs, but it took him a while, so I just kind of ended up eating dinner. Had myself a nice meal of chicken, and I know I was going to talk about that second YouTube comment, but there are a few things that I wanted to mention as well, right? So I mentioned yesterday that the goal of all these videos is to eventually reach a point where I can feel confident in the fact that I'm going to make a good video essay in a concise amount of time, right? Communicate my ideas well. And that's what the YouTube comment was going to talk about. But going further into that, the sub goal at the end of that day, or the sub goal for all of these days, is to add a little bit to that challenge, right, of getting towards an ultimate strong point every day, right? That's why I was sticking so close to like, oh, I need to talk about one narrative. But for this day in particular, I don't want that to stop me, right? I don't want that to stop me from talking about what I want to talk about, because I want to tell you about my favorite coincidence of all time. J Dilla and Nujabes, both born February 7th, 1974, would have been 52 years old today. They're both dead, and they're both the progenitors, godfather and father of lo-fi hip-hop, right? And this is a genre I didn't care much about, maybe even 2 years ago. I only gained a slight interest in it back in, I think, spring of 2025, and for the past 2 months, I've been going on a complete deep dive on Nujabes, what they've done for culture, what they created, just their entire discography, right? And both of them are of much importance. And I think it's so cool, right? They were both born the same day and they both had so much impact. J Dilla too, right? J Dilla I haven't had the pleasure of consuming much of, but the things that I have consumed from him, I've completely understood why they were revolutionary. And I even have a teacher in my school who's my audio production teacher, right? He really loves J Dilla, really loves MF Doom, those kinds of people. And in my old audio class, I had someone who really liked Nujabes in there, right? And he even made some beats kind of influenced by him. And he was really good, right? That student in my class. I had some beef with him, honestly. But when I heard his beats, the beats were so good that I stopped having any beef whatsoever with him, because I care about creativity a little bit more than the past, right? But the thing about J Dilla is that what I learned from my teacher is that J Dilla did something very unique with his production style, right? And he manually offset in his drum machine the beats by maybe even less than a 30-second, right? And he did that by hand. And he created something that sounded wrong, right? But it wasn't wrong. It was right. It was just a different kind of right? Because beforehand, you have to kind of stay on beat, or you can do a little bit of that drunken drumming, but that stays usually in very experimental levels of jazz. He brought this to the hip hop sphere, and he influenced like every beat maker, every facet of hip hop, and he even influenced real drumming as a result. What I think he told me is that one of the drummers from either Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon's band heard J Dilla's music and brought his beat making and his ideas of, manipulating the notes very slightly to have some offset but not being entirely wrong to real drumming. And it's now influenced real drummers too. And Nujabes, on the other hand, he was the first person to kind of show the world what the potential of lo-fi hip-hop was, right? Or at least the beats. And the reason I say that he's like the first is because he wasn't the first, but he was a, and this is my favorite thing that I've ever seen him called, right? He was a mood manipulator, right? And my favorite track from his is Feather. All of these artists, right? I don't have anything particular to say about them, but the fact that their influence can reach so wide, and they were both born on the same day, in the same year, and both died, hold incredible amounts of significance. Just to kind of like history, right? Music history. And I kind of wanted to take my time to say rest in peace and happy birthday to both of them, even if I don't listen to J Dilla, right? I kind of want, at the end of the day, for me to be able to talk about whatever's on my mind, but also keep it low key, you know? Keep it so that my dad doesn't hear me, or, I don't know. It's just something that's pretty cool to mention, very nice to talk about, and I think, I can skip everything else for now, right? I know my ultimate goal. I know that, this YouTube comment made me think a lot, and what it made me think about is, what separates a good essay from a great essay. And it kind of makes me also think, in conjunction with Nujabes and the like, what separates from someone from an inventor and someone who's just simply following the trend, right? And I think about that a lot, right? Because I follow artists who make the trend a lot of the times, and then I have listened to a lot of future core artists, especially, who were influenced by this guy named Psyche, but they don't manage to capture, oftentimes. There are a lot of exceptions, but whenever I hear it, they don't seem to capture the same essence that Psyche did in his hundreds of tracks that he released from about 2016 or 2015 to 2020, and from there he kind of like soft retired due to sickness, right? But even going back to like French house, future funk, most music genres evolve. Sometimes they evolve into a more simplified format. Sometimes they get more complex, right? And these evolutions are what usually define what a genre is after a long period of time. I don't know what hyperpop eventually was, but I do know that it started in one place. I don't know what future bass has turned into. Actually, yes, I do. It's all turned into kind of copies of Pixel Galaxy by Snail's House, but it started in Trekkie tracks, in the underground. It started from, experimenting with vocal chops, experimenting with manipulating the mood, right? How can I make this as happy as humanly possible, slap an anime girl on it, and throw it out to the world, right? That's how Kawaii Future Bass started, as a grand difference, right? And the YouTube comment was talking about the difference between a good video essay and a bad video essay. The thing is, it's very actually hard to tell when you're witnessing a bad video essay, which is why usually I think about what separates a good essay from a great essay. And I came up at the end of this session that what people do differently is that they analyze more than they analyze more than one thing, right? And I used his analogy of kind of like a written paper in school and like writing to meet a minimum word count versus writing to inform. And I used it to say that's not the case for video essays because, the written paper in school is often only going to be seen by you and the teacher. That's not the case for video essays, which is why the third group of students, which I argued are the ones who make a truly great paper or a truly great essay, exceed by paying attention to more. They pay attention to the teacher's mannerisms. What do they like talking about? How have they graded my papers in the past? If I go to their office hours, what will they say about what I've written? And at the end, their paper turns from something that's written to inform to something that's written to communicate, right? That's why I feel like communication is so important, because communication ultimately at the end of the day requires that you have more connection with the world. You have more connection with the world and you have more connection with yourself, right? You want to empathize with someone, right? That's why I feel like communication in writing is like my ultimate goal, right? And that's what the video was about, my ultimate goal. And if I want to continue this video stuff in the future, that's what I have to keep in mind, right? And now that I've gotten through all the material, now that I've gone literally fucking 17 minutes since the time I wanted to stop this, I think this is a good time to kind of cut it off and nip it in the bud or whatever. Yeah, I'm dragging it out. Alright, see you guys later. Bye-bye.